I opened the door and immediately saw Emily sitting cross-legged on the floor with Ava and Noah. The three of them were hunched over a Monopoly board, the pieces scattered in that familiar chaotic way. The sound of laughter, the hum of comfort I hadn't realized I missed, filled the room. "Hey, you're home early," Emily said, her voice lighter than usual. She looked up from the game, her eyes soft with a smile. I stood frozen in the doorway, caught between the warmth of the scene in front of me and the knot twisting in my stomach. I was supposed to feel relief, right? But all I could hear was Ms. Turner's voice, the way she'd warned me again as we'd left the equipment shed. "Don't forget what's at stake, Ryan. Don't forget what's at stake." "Yeah, I got off early," I said, pushing the words out. I smiled, but it felt hollow. I hadn't been expecting this, a calm, quiet evening. And I certainly hadn't expected to feel so damn guilty walking into it. Noah looked up at me, his face lighting up in that way that only kids could. "Dad, I'm winning. Look." He proudly showed me his Monopoly stack of money. I forced a grin, nodding. "Good job, buddy," I said, moving toward the couch. I didn't want to sit, didn't want to feel comfortable. But I let myself sink into the cushions, my back stiff as a board. Ava turned to me next, her small hands covered in colorful game pieces. "Mom says we're having pizza tonight," she announced, her voice full of excitement. She didn't know that this would be the last time I'd sit at the dinner table with her like this, not knowing the secret that was eating me alive. Emily glanced at me then, a flash of something soft in her eyes. She didn't know it, but she looked more like the woman I married when she smiled at me just then. It hurt, this happiness, seeing her unaware. "Yeah, pizza sounds good," I muttered, zoning out as Noah bragged about his latest game move. All I could focus on was the thought of what I'd just done in that damn shed. When dinner finally arrived, pizza boxes stacked high on the counter, I forced myself to join in. The kids were laughing, chatting away as they scarfed down their slices, but I couldn't stop thinking about the text I'd sent Miss Turner earlier that day. I was trying. God, I was trying to end it. But even as I texted her, a part of me knew it wouldn't be the end. She knew too much. "Ryan?" Emily's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. She was watching me, her lips pressed together with a quiet concern. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, just tired." She looked at me for a long second, searching my face, and then she smiled, but there was something hesitant in it. "I'm sorry I've been distant lately," she said, "with everything going on with the second job. I know I've been off. I didn't mean to make you feel like you were alone. I promise I'm going to try harder." The sincerity in her voice hit me like a slap. She thought it was her fault. She was blaming herself for the distance, the quiet tension that had been growing between us for months. I wanted to tell her it wasn't her fault, wanted to scream it actually, but instead I just nodded. "We're good, Em, really," I said, swallowing the guilt that threatened to choke me. She smiled then, but I knew deep down she wasn't convinced. There was something in her eyes that told me she was hoping I would open up, tell her the truth, make things better. But I couldn't because the truth would destroy everything. After the kids went to bed, I found Emily in the kitchen, cleaning up the remnants of our pizza night. Her hands moved automatically, wiping down the counter, stacking plates. She was still humming softly under her breath when she spoke again. "You know, I really appreciate everything you're doing to keep things together," she said, her back to me. "I know it's not easy. I've been working so much lately. I just want to make sure we don't lose everything. I'm doing my best." She paused, and I could see her shoulders tense, as though the weight of her own words was starting to sink in. "I know I haven't been around as much, but I promise I'm going to be here more. I want to be here more." I wanted to scream at her, tell her everything, make her understand the kind of hell I was living in. But the words stuck in my throat. She deserved better than this. I stepped toward her, and when she turned, her eyes were filled with something familiar, something like hope. "I love you, Ryan," she said softly, her hand resting on the edge of the counter. "I just don't want us to drift apart." The irony of it hit me in the chest like a punch. I love you, Ryan, and I was out there kissing another woman just hours ago. "We're good, Em," I said again, this time with a forced smile. I had to lie, because the truth was I was about to lose her, and I couldn't bear the weight of that. She smiled back, but this time I saw it, the hesitation, the doubt that she was trying so hard to mask. And then she reached for me, pulling me into a hug. I held her tightly, inhaling the smell of her hair, wishing, hoping that I could take this back. But I couldn't. Not anymore. The silence between us stretched as I tried to steady my breathing, counting the seconds, knowing the clock was ticking down. Tomorrow, I'd face Ms. Turner again, and it would feel like another step closer to the end. I knocked on Ms. Turner's office door the next day at lunch. I was shaking, my stomach twisted in knots, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to stop. "Come in," she called, her voice light and unbothered, like everything was normal. I stepped inside, and she glanced up from her desk, smiling when she saw me. For a moment, the guilt I felt hung in the air like a heavy fog. She hadn't seen me all day, not since our last encounter in the shed. And yet, here I was again, about to do something that might cost me everything. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice rough. Her smile didn't waver. "Of course. What's on your mind, Ryan?" I closed the door behind me and walked toward her desk, my hands sweaty. "I can't do this anymore," I said, the words coming out in a rush. "I don't want to ruin my marriage. I don't want to lose my family." She didn't say anything for a moment, just studied me, her eyes narrowing slightly. Her gaze flickered with something, frustration or something darker, I couldn't tell. "So, you've had a change of heart," she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, this isn't who I am. I can't keep doing this to Emily and the kids. It's wrong." She leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. The smile was gone now, replaced with something colder, something more calculating. "You know, if you're thinking about backing out because of Emily and the kids, you might want to reconsider." Her voice was casual, but her words cut through the air like a knife. I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" She shrugged, her fingers tapping on the desk. "You know how rumors spread around here, Ryan. If I were to, hypothetically of course, let something slip to the school board, it could create quite a mess for you. Could be a distraction to the team, a scandal. We wouldn't want that, would we?" My heart dropped. I could feel the weight of her words in my chest. She was threatening me, and the worst part was, it was working. I wanted to say something, anything to fight back, but I couldn't. Fear gripped me like a vice. I didn't mean for any of this to happen," I stammered, trying to make sense of the situation. She stood up slowly, walking toward me with a deliberate slowness that sent a shiver down my spine. "You don't have to mean it, Ryan, but it's happening, and now you're stuck. We're good together, don't you think? You and me, we've got chemistry. And what you're feeling now, it's just nerves. You're overthinking it. I'm not going to ruin your life. But if you walk away, well, you know what happens." I wanted to tell her no. I wanted to scream at her and tell her this was over. But I knew she was right. I couldn't risk everything for this, not when there was so much on the line. I looked at the floor, trying to find the strength to walk away, but I didn't have it. I couldn't. Not with the threat hanging over me. "Ryan," she said, her voice softer now, almost coaxing, like she was talking to a child who needed comforting. "I'm not the bad guy here. I'm just offering you something you can't get at home. You don't want to lose your family, do you? Think of what you're giving up." She stepped closer, so close I could smell her perfume, and then she reached out and touched my arm, her fingers sending a jolt of electricity through me. It wasn't a touch of comfort. It was a warning, a reminder of how easily she could take everything from me. I stepped back, a cold sweat breaking out on my neck. I can't," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "I can't keep doing this." Ms. Turner's expression didn't change, but her eyes seemed to darken, like a storm was brewing just beneath the surface. "You're already in this, Ryan. You made your choice. Don't act like you can back out now. We're good together, and you know it." I felt sick of myself, sick of her, but most of all, sick of the mess I'd created. I turned and walked toward the door, the weight of the decision crushing me with each step. Before I opened it, I turned back to her. "Don't make me regret this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She smiled, her eyes gleaming with something I couldn't quite understand. "You won't, Ryan. I'll make sure of that." I left her office and shut the door behind me, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on me. The air in the hallway felt thicker now, heavier with the reality of what I'd just done. I had given in. I had failed. I didn't know how I was going to face Emily later, how I was going to live with the lies I'd told myself, the lies I was going to continue telling her. And as I walked back to my office, I could already feel the tension building inside me, knowing that the consequences of my actions were just beginning. A few weeks later, Emily and I walked into the Booster Club banquet together. She looked beautiful, like she always did, but tonight her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I could feel the distance between us, the tension that had been hanging in the air since the night of the argument, since the night I snapped at Ms. Turner in front of everyone. It hadn't gotten any better, but I kept telling myself that this night, this dinner, might be the way to get back to some kind of normal. I had planned for it to be a night to reconnect, to focus on Emily and me, to pretend everything was fine. I hoped it could be a small step back towards something that resembled happiness. But that wasn't how it was going to go. As we entered the hall, the buzz of conversation immediately hit my ears. The room was full of parents and faculty, all mingling and catching up. I scanned the crowd, but I didn't see Ms. Turner. I didn't want to see her, not tonight. And then, just as Emily and I were making our way toward the buffet table, I saw her. Ms. Turner was tipsy, already leaning a little too much on the edge of the bar as she grinned and laughed at something one of the teachers said. When she caught sight of me, her smile shifted from casual to something much sharper, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Well, Ryan," she said, her voice dripping with too much sweetness. "How's the team doing this season? I heard you've been working late a lot lately, keeping busy." I froze, trying to keep my face neutral. Emily glanced at me, confused. "Yeah, just a lot going on," I muttered, trying to steer the conversation away from Ms. Turner's implications. "Must be hard with Emily working all those extra shifts," Ms. Turner went on, ignoring my attempts to deflect. She took a sip of her drink, her eyes never leaving me. "She's holding down the fort while you're, busy here. It must be exhausting for her." Emily glanced between the two of us, her brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice strained. I shot her a look, hoping she wouldn't push any further, but Ms. Turner wasn't done. She leaned in closer, her voice low, but not quiet enough to hide the innuendo dripping from every word. "I just think it's nice when someone else can help pick up the slack. Other women, filling in where necessary." I saw Emily's confusion turn to something else, something like suspicion as she looked at me. I could feel her eyes digging into me, waiting for an explanation, but I couldn't give her one. I was frozen between the guilt of knowing exactly what Miss Turner meant and the overwhelming desire to get the hell out of this situation. "Okay, that's enough," I finally said, my voice low but firm. My patience had worn thin. Ms. Turner laughed, her eyes gleaming. "Oh, come on, Ryan. Don't be so uptight. I'm just joking," she said. But it wasn't a joke. It never was with her. Emily stood there, staring at me now, and the pit in my stomach grew deeper. She could feel the tension, feel the words left unsaid. "Joking?" she asked, turning to me, her voice barely above a whisper. "What is she talking about, Ryan?" My chest tightened, and for a second, I almost broke. I almost told her everything, right there in front of everyone. I almost admitted that I was the one who had been holding us back, but I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to say those words out loud, especially not in front of Ms. Turner, who was watching us both, her smile smug and knowing. I grabbed Ms. Turner's arm, a little too roughly, but I didn't care. "We're done here," I said, pulling her away from Emily and the table. I didn't know where to go from there, just away from the situation, away from the look in Emily's eyes. Ms. Turner's eyes narrowed as I led her out of the crowd, and I knew what she was thinking. She wasn't done with me. But I didn't want to deal with this right now, not with Emily watching, not with the whole damn room listening. I shoved Ms. Turner into a quieter corner, away from the crowd. "I told you to stop," I hissed. "Stop," she repeated, her tone cold, completely different from the flirtatious voice she'd used before. "You're telling me to stop after everything we've been through?" She stepped closer, her body too close, too familiar. "You don't get to control this, Ryan. You don't get to walk away now." I felt my hands ball into fists. The anger, the frustration, the guilt, everything came crashing down. "I'm trying, okay?" I snapped. "I'm trying to make this right. I'm trying to fix things at home." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Fix things? Don't kid yourself. You can't fix anything, not now. You're already too far in, Ryan. You know that. So stop pretending like you can turn it off just because your wife is starting to ask questions." Her voice dropped lower, more threatening. And you really think she doesn't know something's wrong? Don't be so naive. I turned my back to her, the words gnawing at my insides, telling myself I'd never give in to her again. You've made your point, okay? I said through gritted teeth. Now back off. But she wasn't done. She grabbed my arm before I could leave, her fingers digging into my skin. You think you're getting away from this, Ryan? She whispered. You think you're going to walk away and pretend nothing happened? Nothing's that easy. I jerked my arm out of her grip, my chest tight. I didn't want to hear it anymore. I didn't want to stand here with her, with the shame I could feel wrapping around me like a vice. Get out of my face, I said. I didn't look back as I left, not even when I heard her sharp laugh behind me. I made my way back to the table, my hands shaking. Emily was staring at me, her eyes wide with confusion and hurt. And all I could do was stand there, knowing I had just dug myself deeper. Ryan, she said, her voice small like she was bracing herself. What's going on? I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. The weight of everything I had done, everything I was still doing, crashed down on me in that instant, and I didn't know how to fix it. The moment I stepped out into the cold, I saw Emily standing by the car, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She didn't even look at me when I approached. Her posture was stiff, like she was bracing herself for something. Ryan, she said, her voice quiet but sharp, cutting through the tension. I need to know. What the hell is going on? What is she to you? The words hit me like a punch. I stood frozen for a moment, not knowing how to answer. Her eyes were wide, bloodshot with the beginning of tears she was trying to hold back. But the quiet rage in her tone wasn't something I could ignore. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I couldn't lie. I couldn't tell her it was nothing, because I knew it wasn't nothing. I couldn't look her in the eyes and pretend that everything was fine when I knew it was all falling apart. She took a step closer to me, her face full of that hurt I couldn't stand to see. Ryan, she said again, more forceful this time, her hands shaking as she grabbed my sleeve. She's been flirting with you, hasn't she? That's what this is about, isn't it? All that shit at the banquet? The way she looked at you? I couldn't look away. Her eyes pierced right through me, and I knew she already knew the truth. My throat tightened, but I couldn't get the words out. How could I explain it? How could I tell her that I'd been fucking the one person who had no business being in my life? The one person who made all my guilt feel like a fleeting memory, just long enough to make me forget the family I was destroying. God, Ryan, is this really happening? Her voice cracked as the tears finally broke free. You're cheating on me with her? You've been doing this behind my back while I'm out there busting my ass to support this family? I could see the tears streaming down her face now, the anger turning to devastation, and I knew that this was the moment she had been dreading, the moment when everything I'd kept hidden came spilling out. She was shaking now, her hands clenched into fists. What the hell am I supposed to think, Ryan? What is she doing with you that I'm not? What the fuck do you want from me? I stepped back, trying to gather myself, but I couldn't. The weight of everything hit me, and I knew I was losing her. I didn't mean for this to happen, Emily, I finally said, the words barely coming out of my mouth. I didn't plan for any of this. I fucked up. She cut me off, her voice low but cutting. You didn't just fuck up, Ryan. You're destroying us. You're destroying me. What is she, Ryan? Why does she matter more than me? I felt my knees go weak, and I wanted to scream, wanted to shake her, and tell her that she mattered more than anything, that I loved her. But none of it was true. Not right now. I had fucked up beyond any repairable point. I had betrayed her in ways that I couldn't fix. Tell me, Ryan. Tell me this is all just some mistake. Tell me you didn't sleep with her. Her voice trembled. Tell me I'm wrong about all this. I opened my mouth to say something, but the words stuck. I couldn't lie to her anymore. I couldn't say anything that would make it right. The silence between us was suffocating. Finally, Emily turned away from me, her breath shaky. I thought you loved me. I thought we had a family, she whispered, her voice breaking. But now I have nothing left to believe in. She opened the car door, the sound of it slamming shut like a hammer in my chest. I didn't know what to do, didn't know what to say. My feet felt like they were cemented to the pavement, but I didn't follow her. I couldn't. I watched her drive off, the headlights disappearing around the corner as I stood there, frozen in place. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't check it. I didn't want to. I didn't care who it was. The night felt colder now, darker. I was alone, completely alone, and I knew I had pushed her to the edge. The walk back inside felt like miles. When I entered the banquet hall again, it was almost as if the noise had stopped. My whole body felt heavy, the silence pressing down on me. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on me. I was empty. I'd lost her. I didn't even care if anyone saw it. I didn't care that Ms. Turner had already wormed her way into my life and made a mockery of everything I'd worked for. I didn't care about the school board, the rumors, or the whispers behind my back. Emily was gone, and there was no going back. The silence in the house had been suffocating. Every day felt like I was walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't stand her silence. After a week of barely speaking, I couldn't let it drag on any longer. I had to do something. I needed to make her talk. I needed her to say something, anything, just not this. This silent treatment that felt like a punishment I didn't deserve. That night, after the kids were in bed, I found her in the kitchen, cleaning up the dishes with that same detached look she'd been wearing for days. She didn't even look up when I entered. "Emily," I said, trying to sound calm, though my voice cracked just a little. "Can we talk? Please!" She froze for a second, her hand gripping the plate she was drying. Slowly, she set it down and turned to face me, her eyes dark with exhaustion. "What's there to talk about, Ryan?" Her voice was cold, distant. "What's left to say?" "Please," I pleaded. "I can't stand this. The silence. The way you're just shutting me out. I know I fucked up. I'm trying to fix this. Please just talk to me." She sighed and leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. "What do you want me to say, Ryan? What do you think this is? You think you can just fix everything because you feel guilty? You think you can make me forget what you've done?" I swallowed hard. I knew she was right. I knew nothing could fix it. But I needed her to know I was sorry. I needed her to understand how much I hated myself for what I'd done. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't plan for it," I said, my voice trembling. "I know that doesn't make it right. I was stupid. I was weak, and I betrayed you, Emily, and I'm so sorry." She looked at me then, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Sorry," she whispered, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Ryan. Sorry doesn't erase what you did. I've been working so hard. I took that second job to keep us afloat, to make sure we were okay. And you betrayed me with her, with your boss, of all people. While I was out there working myself to the bone, you were doing this." She shook her head, her voice shaking now with the weight of her anger. "You couldn't even come to me when you felt lonely. You couldn't talk to me or ask for anything. You just did this." The anger in her voice hit me like a slap. I had no defense for it. She was right. I had every chance to be honest with her, to talk to her about how I was feeling. But instead, I let myself slip into something that was never supposed to happen. "I know I should have come to you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I should have talked to you, and I didn't. I was too selfish. I didn't think about what it would do to you, to us." Emily stepped back, her face a mask of pain and disbelief. "You didn't think, Ryan. That's the problem. You never thought about what it would do to me, or to this family, to Noah and Ava. You just kept going. And now, I can't even look at you without feeling like I don't even know who you are anymore." I stepped toward her, desperate to bridge the gap, but she held up her hand to stop me. Don't touch me." Her words cut through me. The space between us felt miles wide. I felt like I was losing everything I had ever cared about. "I know I've fucked up, Emily," I said, voice breaking. "But please don't do this. Please. I love you. I love this family. I know I've made a mess of it, but I'm begging you to give me a chance to make it right." She stared at me for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she spoke. "I can't forgive you, Ryan. Not right now, not after everything. I can't just pretend like nothing happened." I could feel my heart sinking. I knew it was coming, but hearing her say it out loud felt like a punch to the gut. "Emily!" I choked on her name, reaching out toward her, but she stepped back again, shaking her head. "I don't know what I want anymore, but I can't stay here, not like this." Her voice broke, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "I need time to think. I need to figure out if I can even look at you the same way again." "Don't!" I whispered, my voice cracking with desperation. Please don't go. I don't know what I'll do without you. She looked at me, her eyes full of sorrow. I'm staying with my sister for a while. I need space. I can't keep pretending, Ryan. Not anymore. I nodded slowly, defeated. There was nothing left to say. She had made up her mind. I understand, I said quietly, though the words felt like they were strangling me. I understand. I'll give you the space you need. Emily turned toward the door, but before she walked out, she paused. I hope you realize, Ryan, you may have lost everything. With that, she was gone, and I was left alone in the kitchen, the weight of her words sinking into me like a stone in water. I didn't know if I could fix this. I didn't know if it was even possible. All I knew was that I was losing her, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I sat at my desk the next morning, staring at the pile of papers in front of me, barely able to focus. It felt like the walls were closing in, each tick of the clock growing louder, more suffocating. My phone buzzed, but I didn't even look at it. I couldn't. The door to the office opened, and a voice cut through the haze in my head. Ryan, can I see you for a moment? It was Linda from HR. I stood up, my stomach knotting as I followed her down the hall. The walk to her office felt longer than it should have. I kept thinking about Emily and the kids, about how everything was falling apart. I'd never felt so trapped, so exposed. Linda shut the door behind us and motioned for me to sit down. The stiff way she looked at me told me this wasn't going to be a casual chat. I'm afraid we need to address a complaint, she said, sitting across from me. Her voice was neutral, businesslike, but I could hear the edge in it. It's regarding your conduct with Ms. Turner. I felt the room tilt. What kind of complaint? I forced the words out, trying to sound calm, but I already knew what she was going to say. There's been a formal complaint filed, Ryan, alleging inappropriate behavior with a supervisor, she said. It's serious. I blinked, trying to process the weight of her words. Inappropriate behavior? I repeated, my voice thick with disbelief. Linda nodded. Yes, the complaint states that you and Ms. Turner have been involved in a personal relationship, one that's affecting your performance here at the school. The details are troubling. I swallowed hard, fighting to keep my face neutral. This isn't true, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew how hollow they sounded. Linda didn't flinch. We're opening an investigation into the matter, Ryan. Until then, you'll be placed on paid administrative leave. We need to review everything and decide the next steps. She paused, watching me carefully. This could affect your position here, your reputation, and any future employment with the district. I just want you to be aware of what's at stake. I felt like I'd been hit in the chest. I had worked here for years, built a career I was proud of. But now, in an instant, it was all slipping away. My marriage, my career, everything. I nodded stiffly, my hands shaking. I understand. I didn't. But what else was there to say? Do you have anything you'd like to add? Linda asked, watching me closely. I looked down at my hands, my mind racing. I wanted to tell her everything, how Ms. Turner had pushed me into this, how I had made one horrible mistake after another. But I couldn't. Not now, not when I was being watched so closely. No, I said quietly. I'll cooperate fully, whatever you need. Linda gave me a tight nod. We'll be in touch with the details of the investigation. In the meantime, pack up your things. I'll escort you out. I stood up, my legs weak as I walked over to my desk. It was hard to focus, to think straight. The familiar surroundings felt foreign now, tainted by everything that had happened. I grabbed a few personal items from my drawer, my family photos, a couple of mementos from games, but everything felt meaningless. Nothing mattered anymore. As I left my office for the last time, I passed by the gym doors where the kids were finishing their practice. I could hear their laughter, their shouts as they ran drills. I couldn't look at them. I didn't deserve to be part of their world anymore. I stepped outside into the cold, the air biting at my face. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. I didn't want to deal with anyone, especially not now. When I got into my car, I started the engine, my thoughts still spinning. My marriage was over, my career was falling apart, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I pulled out of the parking lot, trying to focus on the road, but I couldn't. I kept thinking about Emily, how she had looked at me the night before, hurt, disappointed, angry. And then, just as I turned onto the main road, I saw Emily's brother's truck parked in front of our house. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what was coming. I drove slowly, almost as if I was trying to delay the inevitable. When I pulled up in front of the house, Drew was standing on the porch, arms crossed, looking as pissed as I'd ever seen him. I got out of the car and walked toward him, my heart hammering in my chest. "Drew," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Where's Emily?" "She's inside," Drew said coldly, not even bothering to shake my hand. "She's devastated, Ryan. You've ruined everything." "I know," I muttered, feeling the weight of his words. "I know I've messed up, Drew, but I love her. I love the kids. I never meant for any of this." He shook his head, a hard look in his eyes. "You think you're the victim here?" he snapped. "You think I'm going to listen to your excuses?" "I'm not asking for sympathy, Drew," I said quietly. "I'm asking for a chance to make things right." Drew's eyes narrowed. "It's too late for that. Emily's done with you. She doesn't want to hear any more of your bullshit." He took a deep breath. "Here," he said, tossing something at me. I caught it reflexively. Divorce papers. My stomach churned. "You've got 2 kids to worry about now. You'd better get yourself a lawyer. And you better be ready for a fight." Drew's voice was low, his words sharp. "I don't care what you think you deserve, but you're going to regret what you did. We all will." With that, Drew turned and walked back into the house, leaving me standing on the front porch, holding the divorce papers like they were a death sentence. I stood there for a long time, staring at the papers, trying to process the finality of it all. The next few days were a blur of phone calls to lawyers, trying to make sense of what came next. But deep down, I knew. It was over. And it had been my fault. I hadn't just lost my wife. I hadn't just lost my family. I had lost everything. I sat in the courtroom, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. The walls were closing in, staring at the judge, hearing the words of Emily's lawyer cutting through the air like knives. It was like I was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, all coming apart in front of my eyes. Emily's lawyer painted me as reckless, a father who had completely lost his way. "Mr. Barnes has clearly demonstrated poor judgment in his personal life," she said, her voice smooth and calculated. "This affair with Ms. Turner has not only jeopardized his marriage, but has put his children's stability at risk." I wanted to speak, to defend myself, but I couldn't. I felt paralyzed, the weight of the guilt hanging so heavily on me that I couldn't find the words. My lawyer had advised me to stay quiet, but I wanted to scream. I wanted to say that I was a good father, that I loved my kids more than anything. But how could I say that when everything I'd done said the opposite? "Ryan Barnes is a man who has shown he cannot be trusted to make sound decisions," the lawyer continued, making her case with the precision of someone who had been preparing for this moment for months. "And we believe that he is unfit for primary custody." Every word felt like a punch to the gut. My heart was pounding in my chest as I tried to hold myself together. I couldn't let myself break in front of everyone, but I could feel the heat of shame on my face, the weight of my mistakes bearing down on me. And then came Ms. Turner. She wasn't even supposed to be here, but Emily's lawyer called her as a witness, and when she took the stand, I froze. I could feel my skin crawl as she looked at me, that smug smile still on her face. I couldn't believe she was here, using this moment to get back at me for even thinking of walking away. Ms. Turner's voice was sweet, almost too sweet, as she spoke about our relationship. She didn't use the word affair directly, but everyone in the room knew what she meant. She exaggerated our connection, making it sound like I'd used her for career advancement. Like it had all been a plan, an intentional manipulation on my part. "Mr. Barnes was a dedicated coach," she said, casting a glance at me. "But he wanted more. He came to me for support, for guidance. I never pushed him, but we developed a connection. And after that, it was impossible for him to focus on his responsibilities. He was distracted, disengaged, and frankly, unfit to lead his family. I wanted to stand up and shout, tell everyone how it wasn't like that, how I wasn't some damn predator using her for my own gain. I wanted to tell them all that I was a good father, a good husband before everything fell apart. But when I glanced at Emily, I saw the hurt in her eyes. I saw the way she was looking at me, not with anger now, but with something worse, disappointment. My lawyer tried to argue my case, but it felt like nothing mattered anymore. Not the late nights I'd spent coaching the team, not the sacrifices I'd made for my kids. Emily's lawyer painted a picture of a man too consumed by his mistakes to see what really mattered. Your Honor, Emily's lawyer finished, her voice as cold as steel. This is not the kind of man who should have primary custody. We request full custody for Emily Barnes. The judge didn't even look at me when he asked for a brief recess. I stood up, my legs unsteady, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. My hands were trembling, my stomach in knots. I looked toward the back of the courtroom, hoping, praying, to see Emily's face one more time. But she wasn't looking at me. She was staring straight ahead, her jaw set in that familiar, stubborn way. When the recess ended, I could barely focus on the judge's words. The decision was clear. My heart sank as he spoke. Based on the evidence presented and the testimony of both parties, I believe it is in the best interest of the children that Emily Barnes be granted primary custody. The marriage is irreparably broken, and I am ordering that the family home be sold. The gavel came down with a sharp crack, and I felt my world shatter. I was losing everything: my marriage, my kids, my career. It was all gone. I wanted to beg. I wanted to plead with the judge, with Emily, with anyone who would listen, but the words wouldn't come. I was numb, barely able to breathe. The court was adjourned, but I couldn't move. I stayed in my seat, staring at the floor, trying to comprehend what had just happened. The sound of chairs scraping across the floor broke through the silence, and I looked up to see Emily leaving the courtroom, Drew by her side. I stood, but my legs were shaky. I wanted to go after her, to beg her to talk to me. But I knew it was pointless. She was done. I walked out of the courtroom alone, my head spinning. The truth was unbearable. I had lost my family, and now I was losing everything I cared about. I didn't know how I was going to live with myself after all this. I didn't know how to make it right. The courtroom was suffocating. The tension in the air was thick, like everyone in the room was holding their breath, waiting for me to crack. And maybe I did. I couldn't focus on anything but the words being thrown at me. Reckless, unfit, irresponsible. Every word from Emily's lawyer felt like a slap, leaving red marks that I couldn't wipe away. I sat there, stiff, trying to hold it together, but it was impossible. The weight of everything, the affair, the lies, the family I had destroyed, was too much to bear. Emily's lawyer didn't let up, painting me as a man who had no business being a father, let alone having primary custody of our kids. The accusations of infidelity, of using Ms. Turner for career advancement, they all hit their mark. And then there was Ms. Turner. I'd tried to avoid looking at her, but it was impossible not to. She was sitting there, smug as ever, acting like none of this had anything to do with her. Her testimony was a dagger to my chest. She exaggerated everything. She made it sound like I had used her, like the entire affair had been some calculated move to get ahead in my career. Every word out of her mouth felt like another betrayal. "She was the one who needed me, Your Honor," Ms. Turner said, her voice as sweet as honey. "He was struggling, as I said. I helped him. I offered support. But this isn't just about him. It's about the trust that was broken. Not just with his wife, but with the school. The fact that he's put his personal life above his professional one speaks volumes." I wanted to object, to stand up and scream that it wasn't like that I hadn't asked for any of this, that I was just trying to hold things together. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I sat there, silent, like I had been from the start. My lawyer tried to counter, tried to argue that I was a good father, that my mistakes didn't define me. But every time I glanced at Emily, I saw the hurt in her eyes. She wasn't looking at me like she had years ago. There was no warmth left, no love, only cold disappointment and guilt. So much guilt. The judge asked a few questions, but it was clear where this was heading. The decision was all but written in the air around us. The gavel came down, and I felt my heart stop. After reviewing the evidence presented, I believe it is in the best interest of the children that Emily Barnes be granted primary custody, the judge said, his voice final. The defendant's actions have demonstrated a lack of judgment, and I believe this has affected his ability to care for his children in a way that is appropriate. As such, I am ordering that the family home be sold. I couldn't breathe. My stomach dropped, and the world spun around me. Everything I'd built, my marriage, my family, my career, was gone. Just like that. The sound of the gavel ringing in my ears was the only thing I could hear. I couldn't even look at Emily. I wanted to beg her, to tell her that I still loved her, that I was sorry, that I would do anything to fix this. But I knew that wasn't enough. Sorry didn't fix this. I had broken too much. The rest of the proceedings were a blur. I heard my lawyer speak, heard the judge rule, but it all felt distant, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. When the court session finally ended, I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the decision settling over me. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, but I couldn't look at any of them. I turned to walk out, and when I reached the door, I felt a hand on my arm. Drew. I couldn't meet his eyes either, not after everything I'd done, not after the way I had betrayed his sister, betrayed all of them. "You're done, Ryan," he said quietly. "This is on you now. You'll have to face what comes next." I nodded, my throat tight. I wanted to say something, anything to explain, but I couldn't. There was nothing left to say. The room felt even smaller as I walked out. As I stepped into the hallway, I saw Emily one last time, sitting with her lawyer, her eyes focused ahead. She wasn't looking at me. She wasn't even looking in my direction. I couldn't bring myself to speak to her, not now, not after everything. Outside, the air was cold. It bit at my skin, but it didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore. The world was a blur as I walked to my car, my thoughts spinning, my heart heavy with the weight of my choices. I got into my car, slammed the door, and just sat there. I stared at the steering wheel, not knowing what to do next. My marriage was over. My family was gone. My job was a ticking time bomb. I started the engine, but it felt like I was driving through fog. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to fix any of this. I didn't know if I even could. I stood in the middle of the apartment, looking around at the bare walls and the few things I'd managed to throw together. A couple of boxes, a few clothes, the essentials. Nothing felt like home. I hadn't even unpacked yet. I couldn't. I wasn't supposed to be here. This wasn't my life. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Noah and Ava were with Emily for now. She'd taken them for the weekend, and the silence in the apartment was deafening. I'd barely spoken to her since the court hearing. It was like she didn't even want to look at me anymore. I couldn't blame her. The weight of the divorce papers still sat heavy in my chest, like an anchor dragging me down. Emily was done. She had made it clear that there was no fixing this. The judge had sided with her, and now I was just a visitor in my kids' lives. I ran my hands through my hair and collapsed onto the couch. The place smelled sterile, empty. Even the air felt wrong. I closed my eyes, trying to block out everything, but the image of Emily's face, the way she'd looked at me in the courtroom, haunted me. The hurt in her eyes, it was too much to bear. I didn't deserve her. I didn't deserve to have her in my life anymore. The phone rang, dragging me out of my thoughts. I glanced at the screen. Emily's name flashed on it, and my heart skipped in my chest. I shouldn't have answered, I knew that, but I couldn't help it. "Hello?" My voice was shaky, a little too rough. I cleared my throat, trying to steady myself. "Ryan, I need to talk to you," Emily said, her voice cold and distant. I sat up straighter. "Okay, what is it?" I asked, even though I knew what she'd say. I knew it wouldn't be good. "I need you to understand that this is not just about us anymore," she said, her voice wavering. "It's about Noah and Ava. It's about them being in a stable environment, and that's not going to happen if you keep making the same mistakes." I felt the sting of her words, but I didn't interrupt. I deserved this. "I don't know what else to say to you, Ryan. I don't think I can ever forgive you for what you did. I can't keep pretending like I don't know who you are anymore," she continued. Her words were clipped, emotion spilling out between them. I could feel her slipping further away, and it hurt in a way I hadn't known was possible. I wanted to tell her I was sorry, that I'd fix everything, that I loved her more than anything. But I knew it wouldn't matter. Sorry didn't fix this. "I don't know what to do," I said, my voice quieter now. "I don't know how to fix this. I'm trying." She was silent for a moment, and I could hear the faint sound of her breathing on the other end. "I know you are, but it's not enough, Ryan. You've lost me, and I can't keep waiting for something that isn't coming." The weight of her words crushed me. The reality of it hit me in waves. I wasn't just losing her, I was losing everything. I let the silence stretch out for a moment. Then I managed to whisper, "Can I at least see them? Can I see Noah and Ava?" She sighed, her voice softening for just a second. "I'll bring them to the park tomorrow. You can see them for a little while, but I'm not doing this anymore, Ryan. I can't keep pretending like I don't know what's going on. I can't keep living in this lie." I closed my eyes, nodding even though she couldn't see me. Okay, I'll be there." There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I just don't know how we got here, Ryan. You used to be everything to me, but I don't recognize you anymore." Her words were the final blow. I wasn't sure how much more I could take. "Goodbye, Ryan," she said, and then the line went dead. I dropped the phone onto the couch beside me and sat there, numb. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know how to live in this version of my life. This wasn't me. This wasn't what I wanted. I lay back on the couch and stared up at the ceiling, trying to fight back the tears that threatened to come. I couldn't let myself break down again. I had to keep going, for the kids, for something. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't keep running from my mistakes. I reached over and grabbed the blanket off the armrest, pulling it around myself. As the weight of everything settled back in, I promised myself one thing. I would rebuild. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I would rebuild. For them. For Noah and Ava. Tomorrow, I'd face whatever came next. But for now, I stared at the ceiling, feeling like I was at the bottom of a hole with no way out. And I knew I had no one to blame but myself.